Here we have verse 21 of the 16th chapter of the Gospel of John. Jesus has been explaining to his disciples something that certainly they were not quite fathoming, that for a brief time they were going to be in sorrow, that he would not be seen, but then soon enough he would be seen. And of course he's alluding to his death and burial and the resurrection that would come shortly thereafter. At this point, the disciples are still just scratching their heads and in a state of some degree of consternation, I suppose, about the whole matter. And now Jesus likens their situation to a woman who's about to give birth. And so we have this description of this in verse 21. So he is the feminine nominative singular article. So he gune from Greek gynecology, those kinds of words in English, a woman, so the woman. Hotan, when, the on at the end of it suggests we're going to have the subjunctive, and this word is commonly used with the subjunctive, so it's a conjunction that points to a subjunctive verb. So the woman, whenever, you might say, and then tikte. This word actually just means to bear, and it's used commonly in terms of giving birth or bearing a child, and it came to incorporate within it, therefore, the idea of travailing or being in pain or distress in connection with that, and that's the sense here. So the woman, whenever she travails or gives birth, lupe we had in the previous verse, it means sorrow or anguish, and so she has this eke, from echo I have, third person singular, present active indicative. So the woman, whenever she's giving birth, has sorrow, has a feeling of distress and so on. And then hoti, the conjunction, here it means because eilthin from erkamai, I come, this is the third person singular, aorist active indicative, because it comes, and then he hora, the hour, and it belongs to her, so we have the genitive feminine singular pronoun, because the hour of her is coming. So as she's about to give birth, she's feeling this anguish and so on in anticipation of it. And then hotan, same word again, whenever, soft conjunction, but, and then genese. Genese from ganao means to give birth. It's the idea. And this is the third person singular aorist active subjunctive, because again we have hotan, which expects the subjunctive. So whenever she births would be the idea. We don't quite say it in that normally in English, but that's the notion. So whenever she births, then to paidion, the child. Paidion is the word for child, usually referring to a little child, and of course in this case an infant who is newborn. The neuter, accusative singular article here, so whenever she births the child, and then indeclinable adverb, uketi, no longer. We have nemo nue from nemo nuo, which means to remember. This is the third person singular, present active indicative. She no longer remembers, tastes, the genitive, singular article. The thlipsis is the word. This is the genitive, of course. So the thlipseos. She no longer remembers the affliction, the anguish. There's a moment of grief, of course, in anticipation of the birth and the pain and the so on that goes into it. But when she gives birth, she doesn't remember that anymore, because dia takes the accusative, meaning on account of, tain karan, the word for joy, because of the joy. And then here hoti means that. Agenethe, this is the same word we had earlier. It's this word, the notion of ganao. In this case, it's in the indicative. It's the third person singular aorist passive indicative, because it is born, or he is born. Anthropos, a man, is the idea, but bear in mind anthropos in Greek was rather a generic word, standing more for humanity than for man as male. As you probably know, aner is the word that really points to a male as such, whereas anthropos speaks of man as humanity. And so we could probably render it safely enough a child, because a child has been born, has been brought eis, preposition with the accusative tone kosmon, into the world. And just as a woman goes through that kind of experience, so the disciples, Jesus is saying, are going to go through something like that experience, a moment of anguish, but they won't remember it, of course, later, for the joy that will overcome them with the resurrection of Christ.